The Path to the Future. Soren sat in his room, carefully reviewing his curriculum vitae, CV. I ought to add more extracurricular activities if I want a better chance at university, he whispered to himself. He knew that the advantages of having a well-rounded profile were worth the extra effort. He should focus on his strengths, but he felt his list of hobbies was a bit short. There was a knock at the door, and Lyra walked in, holding a glossy advertisement she had picked up at the local newsagents. "Soren, you should see this," she said. "It's for a city-wide trivia night. We ought to join the team. It would look great on your applications and be a lot of fun." They began to study together for their upcoming science exam. Lyra pointed to a page about microorganisms. "You should remember that while one bacterium is tiny, colonies of bacteria can grow very fast," she noted. Soren nodded and added, "And we ought to distinguish between silicon used in chips and silicone used in flexible molds." Lyra flipped to a section on local history and saw a picture of a strange statue. It was a dairymaid, but instead of a hat, she wore large deer antlers. "We should study the folklore behind this," Lyra said. "Artists in the past had such odd ideas. We ought to understand why they combined a farm worker with a forest creature." Soren turned his attention to his math homework. He had several equations to solve, involving a large rectangle. "I ought to solve for the perimeter first," he said. "The length of this rectangular area is multiplied by 2, then added to the width multiplied by 2. If the sides are equal, it's just a square, but the logic is the same." Lyra suddenly started to cough. "My throat is so dry," she complained. Soren reached into his bag and found a packet. "You should try these throat candies or some lozenges," he suggested. "Just avoid the licorice ones. They taste terrible. We ought to drink water to purify our bodies and stay away from dairy products until you feel better." For their social studies project, Lyra brought up a difficult topic. They were researching the ethics of firearms and the history of the lethal injection. "It's as dramatic as a soap opera where a character is unfaithful to their partner," Lyra sighed. "But these are real lives. We should present the facts clearly, and we ought to remain objective in our essay." Later that afternoon, they walked back to the newsagents. Soren was wearing his favorite checked shirt. "It's nearly Shrove Tuesday," he remarked, seeing the displays for pancakes. "We should buy some ingredients now. We ought to celebrate with a big feast before our final study sessions begin." They took a shortcut through a field of golden wheat. Soren stopped to look at a ladybird, also known as a ladybug, resting on a tall weed. In the soft mud, he saw the imprint of a large mammal. "Look," he said. "You can see the mark of the heel and the curve of the instep. It was likely a large dog." As the town clock began to strike 5, they reached the house. "We ought to have a barbecue on the grill in a fortnight," Soren suggested. "I should play less Fortnite and spend more time with my friends before summer ends." Lyra laughed and agreed, knowing they had a bright future ahead.